Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! A new face stared back from the bathroom mirror, transformed and unfamiliar. With a gentle touch, they traced their fingertips along a soft jawline, marveling at the smoothness, a rewarding sensation that outweighed the memory of the laser session's discomfort and cost. Who would have imagined this possible? They whispered to their reflection, the room empty but for themselves. This path towards self-actualization started with furtive weekend experiments, their secret well guarded behind locked doors. As their journey progressed, so did their physicality. Hair that had once been conforming, now long and lush, aided by a dedicated regimen of biotin and nurturing hair care. His past self, with stubble and short hair, felt like a distant memory. The sleeveless design would have been unthinkable before the laser treatments. Arms that once bristled with dark hair were now smooth and feminine. The chest, once covered in coarse hair, now showed only clear skin above the neckline of the dress. The dress slid over Taylor's head, the fabric cool against freshly moisturized skin. Months of hormone therapy had begun to reshape the body beneath the garment, creating subtle curves that the dress enhanced perfectly. Taylor smoothed the material over hips that were slowly widening, admiring how the dress hugged in all the right places. "Tonight's the night," Taylor murmured, reaching for the makeup bag. Foundation went on smoothly, without the shadow of beard growth showing through. No more heavy color-correcting concealer needed to hide the blue tint of facial hair. Contouring created softness where once there had been angular features. A sweep of mascara accentuated eyes that seemed brighter now, more alive. Finally, red lipstick to match the dress. The nude stockings were next, sliding up legs that hadn't felt the scratch of stubble in months. No more worrying about missed spots while shaving, or the inevitable next-day roughness. The freedom from that constant battle had been worth every painful zap of the laser. Taylor stood before the full-length mirror and barely recognized the person looking back. Gone was the awkward, uncomfortable shell of a person who had struggled for so long to fit into the wrong category. In their place stood a woman. Confident, beautiful, authentic. The phone buzzed on the vanity. "You coming out tonight or what?" The text from Madeline glowed on the screen. Taylor's thumbs hovered over the phone before typing back. "On my way. First time out in the red dress." 3 dots pulsed as Madeline composed her response. "Can't wait to see. We'll be at Emilio's." Taylor slipped into heels that added 3 inches of height and grabbed a small clutch purse. Keys, ID, with a gender marker that had taken months of paperwork to change, lipstick for touch-ups, and pepper spray. Just in case. The world wasn't always kind to women like her. The rideshare arrived within minutes. Taylor stepped out of the apartment, walking with practiced confidence in heels that no longer felt foreign. The driver glanced in the rearview mirror. "Emilio's restaurant on Oak Street, right?" "That's correct," Taylor replied, the voice warm and feminine, the result of countless hours of practice. The restaurant came into view, its patio strung with fairy lights that twinkled against the evening sky. Taylor paid the driver and stepped out onto the sidewalk, pausing for a moment to adjust the dress. A deep breath in, slow exhale out. This wasn't the first time presenting as a woman in public, but it was the first time doing so without the constant anxiety about body hair showing. Through the restaurant's large windows, Taylor spotted Madeline and 2 other friends at a table near the back. The moment of truth had arrived. Inside, the hostess smiled. "Good evening, ma'am. Do you have a reservation?" The simple word, ma'am, sent a ripple of validation through Taylor's body. "I'm meeting friends. They're already seated." "Of course. Go right ahead." Walking through the restaurant felt like moving through a spotlight. Were people staring? Judging? Or was it all in her head? Taylor focused on Madeline, who had spotted her and was now waving enthusiastically. "You look amazing!" Madeline stood to embrace Taylor, her floral perfume enveloping them both. "The red is perfect with your auburn hair. Absolutely stunning." "Thank you." Taylor's voice caught slightly with emotion. "It's been a journey." David, Madeline's husband, stood politely as Taylor approached the table. He'd been supportive from the beginning, treating Taylor's transition with respectful interest and genuine care. Beside him sat Rebecca, another close friend who had been there through the darkest moments of Taylor's struggle. "That dress was made for you," Rebecca said, pulling out the chair beside her. "Sit down and tell us everything about the final laser session." Taylor sat, crossing smooth legs under the table. The feeling of stockings against skin without the scratch of stubble was still novel enough to bring a smile. "The technician said I'm officially done. Might need a touch-up in a year or so, but the hair follicles are pretty much destroyed." Taylor reached for the wine menu. "I never thought I'd be sitting here like this, in a sleeveless dress, not worrying about every inch of exposed skin." "To freedom." David raised his glass. "And to Taylor, who showed us all what courage really looks like." They clinked glasses, and Taylor felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the wine. The conversation flowed easily, touching on work, mutual friends, and plans for the upcoming holiday season. The waiter approached, notepad in hand.
"What can I get for you, ladies and gentlemen, this evening?"
Taylor ordered the seared scallops, enjoying how natural it felt to be included as one of the ladies at the table. The waiter didn't give her a second look, just another woman enjoying dinner with friends. "Remember when we used to come here and you would only order the burger because it was the safest menu item to eat without feeling self-conscious?" Madeline asked, between sips of wine. Taylor laughed. "I was so worried about looking masculine while eating, as if there's a feminine way to chew." "Now look at you," Rebecca gestured to Taylor's confident posture. "Ordering seafood like a boss."
"Speaking of bosses,"
David interjected,
"how's work going with the transition? Has everyone adjusted to the name change?"
Taylor nodded, appreciating the genuine interest. "Surprisingly well. HR was fantastic about updating everything. There was that one guy from accounting who kept accidentally using the wrong pronouns, but the department head shut that down quickly." "And your parents?" Madeline asked cautiously. A shadow passed over Taylor's face. "Mom's trying. She still slips up on the name sometimes, but I can tell she's making an effort. Dad..." Taylor paused. "Dad's coming around, I think. He actually called me last week and managed to get through the entire conversation without dead-naming me once." "Progress." Rebecca nodded encouragingly. Their meals arrived, steam rising from perfectly plated dishes. Taylor adjusted the napkin on her lap, still marveling at the smooth feel of her legs beneath the fabric of her dress. "Do you mind if I ask something personal?" David leaned forward slightly. Madeline shot him a warning look, but Taylor nodded permission. "How much difference did the laser really make for your confidence? From the outside, it seems like you've been becoming more yourself gradually over time." Taylor considered the question. "It's hard to explain if you haven't experienced gender dysphoria. Every time I looked in the mirror and saw facial hair, even the shadow of it under foundation, it was like seeing someone else staring back at me. someone I didn't recognize or want to be. Taylor took a sip of water, gathering thoughts. Imagine wearing a mask you can never take off. You can cover it with paint, but you always feel it there. Laser was like finally being able to remove that mask. It's not just about appearance. It's about aligning what I see with who I know I am. David nodded thoughtfully. Thank you for explaining. The conversation shifted to lighter topics as they enjoyed their meals. Taylor caught glimpses of herself in the restaurant's mirrored wall, still somewhat surprised by the woman reflected back. The red dress complemented her auburn hair perfectly, creating a cohesive look that felt right in a way nothing in her previous life ever had. As they finished dessert, Taylor excused herself to the restroom. The walk across the restaurant no longer felt like a gauntlet. Instead, Taylor moved with the confidence of someone who belonged exactly where she was. In the restroom, another woman was touching up her makeup at the sink. "I love your dress," she commented casually. "That shade of red is gorgeous." "Thank you," Taylor smiled, entering a stall. Such a simple interaction, yet profound in its normalcy. No double takes, no questioning glances, just one woman complimenting another's outfit. When Taylor returned to the table, Madeline was already settling the bill. "My treat tonight," she insisted. "We're celebrating your milestone." Outside, the evening had cooled. Taylor pulled a light wrap from her purse, draping it over bare shoulders. "Where to next?" Rebecca asked. "We could hit that new cocktail place on Maple Street." Taylor hesitated. "Actually, would you mind if we walked through the park? I just want to enjoy being out like this, feeling the air on my skin without worrying." They strolled through the tree-lined paths of the city park, street lamps casting pools of light on the pavement. Taylor was acutely aware of the freedom in each step. No more hiding, no more pretending. "You know what's strange?" Taylor said as they paused near the central fountain. "For years, I thought the goal was to pass, to have strangers see me as a woman. But now I realize the person I most needed to convince was myself." Madeline squeezed Taylor's hand. "And have you?" Taylor looked down at their interlocked fingers, Madeline's manicured nails against her own. "I'm getting there. Some days are easier than others. But yes, I think I'm finally seeing myself clearly." The walk continued, conversation flowing easily between the four friends. Taylor noticed how naturally she now moved in heels, how comfortable she felt in her own skin. The constant hyper-awareness of body had faded to background noise rather than screaming anxiety. Near the park exit, they passed a group of college-aged men. Taylor tensed slightly from habit, but the men barely glanced their way before continuing their own conversation. "See?" Rebecca whispered. "Just another night out with the girls." They ended the evening at a quiet cafe, sharing coffee and making plans for the weekend ahead. When it was time to part ways, the hugs lingered a bit longer than usual. "Tonight was important," Madeline said, holding Taylor at arm's length to look at her directly. "But it's just the beginning. You know that, right?" Taylor nodded. "I know. One day at a time." The rideshare home was quiet, giving Taylor time to reflect. The driver called her ma'am when she exited, another small affirmation in a night full of them. Back in her apartment, Taylor kicked off the heels and padded barefoot to the bathroom. The makeup came off, no longer a mask, but simply an enhancement. The red dress was carefully hung up, ready for another occasion. In sleep shorts and a tank top, Taylor sat on the edge of the bed, and opened the journal kept on the nightstand. Inside were records of the journey, dates of hormone treatments, laser sessions, voice coaching, therapy appointments. So many small steps that had led to tonight. On a fresh page, Taylor wrote, "First night out after completing laser. Red dress. No hiding. Felt right." Simple words for a profound experience. The next morning brought routine. Coffee, breakfast, emails. Taylor dressed for work in a navy pencil skirt and cream blouse, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Professional, understated, and completely herself. The office had initially been a source of anxiety. Would colleagues accept the transition? Would clients treat her differently? Most had been supportive, some merely polite, and a few uncomfortable. But over time, Taylor's competence had remained the primary focus. "Morning, Taylor," called Monica from the reception desk. "You're glowing today. Good night?" "The best." Taylor smiled, heading to her desk. The marketing team was gathered for their morning meeting when Taylor arrived. Ellen, the department head, was discussing the upcoming campaign launch. "Taylor, we need your input on the digital strategy. The client specifically mentioned how much they appreciated your presentation last week." Pride swelled in Taylor's chest. "Happy to walk through it now, if everyone has time." Standing before her colleagues, pointer in hand, as she navigated through slides, Taylor realized how far she had come. A year ago, the thought of commanding a room would have been terrifying, not because of the content, but because of the scrutiny she imagined her appearance would bring. Now, the focus was where it belonged, on her expertise, her ideas, her professional contributions. The meeting concluded with approved strategies and clear next steps. As people filtered out, Ellen held back. "I wanted to check in," she said quietly. "How are you feeling about everything? You seem more confident lately." Taylor appreciated the genuine concern. "I am. Finishing the laser treatments was a big milestone for me. It's hard to explain, but removing that barrier has made everything else feel more possible." Ellen nodded. "Well, you've always been an asset to this team, and that hasn't changed. I'm just glad to see you comfortable in your own skin. It shows in your work." The rest of the workday passed in a productive blur. Taylor handled client calls, refined campaign strategies, and collaborated with the design team. At lunch, she joined colleagues in the break room rather than eating alone at her desk as she once did. When 5 o'clock arrived, Taylor packed her laptop and prepared to leave. A notification on her phone reminded her of tomorrow's appointment, a consultation about potential voice surgery. Though her voice training had yielded good results, Taylor was exploring all options for addressing one of the more persistent sources of dysphoria. The following weeks established a new normal. Taylor expanded her wardrobe, no longer limited by concerns about revealing too much skin. Sleeveless tops, knee-length skirts, even shorts when the weather warmed. All became possible without the constant worry about visible body hair. Dating, however, remained complicated. Taylor had updated her profiles on several apps, being upfront about being transgender to avoid surprising potential matches. Some conversations ended abruptly after this disclosure. Others turned inappropriate quickly, but occasionally, meaningful connections formed. One such connection was with Michael, a literature professor at the local university. Their first date was at a bookstore cafe, neutral territory where Taylor felt safe. "I've been looking forward to meeting you," Michael said, as they settled at a corner table with their coffee. "Your thoughts on Ishiguro's narrative techniques were fascinating." Taylor smiled, remembering their lengthy message thread discussing favorite authors. "It's refreshing to talk about books rather than having to explain my existence." Michael's expression was thoughtful.
"I can only imagine how exhausting that must be."
"It can be," Taylor admitted. But I'm learning to balance education with self-preservation. Some people earn the explanation, others don't. The conversation flowed easily between literature, films, and their respective careers. Michael asked questions when appropriate, but never made Taylor feel like a curiosity or a teaching moment. As they prepared to leave, Michael hesitated. Would you be interested in dinner next week? There's a new Vietnamese place downtown I've been wanting to try. Taylor found herself nodding. I'd like that. The dinner date went equally well, as did the museum visit that followed a week later. Taylor found herself growing comfortable with Michael, appreciating his intellect and gentle humor. After their fourth date, a walk through the botanical gardens followed by ice cream, Michael walked Taylor to her door. I've really enjoyed getting to know you, he said, his hand lightly touching hers. Me too, Taylor replied, aware of the increasing tension between them. May I kiss you goodnight? The question sent a flutter through Taylor's stomach, part excitement, part anxiety. She nodded, and Michael leaned in, his lips meeting hers in a soft, brief kiss.
Good night, Taylor,
he whispered, stepping back.
Good night.
Inside her apartment, Taylor touched her lips, processing the moment. The kiss had felt right, normal, natural, without the overlay of gender anxiety that had colored previous romantic encounters. Michael texted 20 minutes later.
Thank you for a wonderful evening. Sleep well.
Taylor replied with a simple heart emoji, smiling at the screen. As their relationship developed over the following months, Taylor found herself letting down guards she hadn't realized were still in place. Michael was patient, never pushing for physical intimacy before Taylor was ready, never treating her body as a curiosity.
What are you thinking about?
Michael asked one evening as they sat on his couch, Taylor's auburn hair spilling over his shoulder as she leaned against him. How different everything feels now, Taylor admitted. A year ago, I couldn't imagine sitting like this, wearing a tank top, not constantly checking if stubble was showing or if my makeup was still covering everything. Michael's fingers traced patterns on her bare arm. You've mentioned how important the laser treatments were. Was that the turning point? Taylor considered the question. Not the only one, but a significant one. Hormone therapy changed how I felt, but laser changed how the world saw me, and how I saw myself. It removed a daily reminder that my body wasn't aligned with my identity. You're beautiful, Michael said simply. Inside and out. Their relationship progressed naturally, each milestone celebrated privately. The first time they made love, Taylor cried afterward, not from pain or regret, but from the overwhelming realization that intimacy could feel right, could affirm rather than contradict her identity. Taylor's 30th birthday arrived in early autumn. Madeline organized a small gathering at her home, close friends, a few colleagues, and Michael, who had become a steady presence in Taylor's life. Speech! Called David as Taylor blew out the candles on her cake. Taylor stood, smoothing the emerald green dress she'd chosen for the occasion. Her auburn hair was swept into an elegant updo, exposing the delicate curve of her neck and shoulders. I'm not sure what to say, she began, looking around at the faces of those who had supported her journey. Except thank you. Last year at this time, I was still hiding parts of myself, literally and figuratively. A gentle laugh rippled through the room. Now, I feel like I'm living authentically for the first time, not just presenting as a woman, but being fully present in my life. Taylor raised her glass.
To authentic living, and to the people who make it possible.
Glasses clinked around the room. Michael squeezed her hand under the table, his eyes reflecting pride and affection. Later, as guests began to depart, Madeline pulled Taylor aside. "I have something for you," she said, pressing a small gift bag into Taylor's hands. "Open it when you get home." Back at her apartment, with Michael making tea in the kitchen, Taylor opened Madeline's gift. Inside was a delicate silver photo frame. The picture it contained brought tears to Taylor's eyes, a side-by-side comparison of Taylor from before her transition and now. The difference was striking, not just in appearance but in the expression, the posture, the evident comfort in her own skin. Michael appeared with 2 steaming mugs.
"What's that?"
Taylor showed him the frame.
"Madeline's gift, a reminder of how far I've come."
Michael studied the photos.
"The person on the right is who you were always meant to be. It's in your eyes."
Taylor placed the frame on her mantel, where it would serve as a daily affirmation. "Sometimes I need the reminder that this journey was worth every difficult moment."
"And was it?"
Michael asked, settling beside her on the couch. Taylor thought about the laser sessions. Painful but transformative. The awkward conversations with family and friends. The stares from strangers. The paperwork. The expense. The constant explanations. Then, she thought about sitting here now, in a dress that revealed her shoulders and arms without anxiety, her legs crossed comfortably, her body finally beginning to feel like home rather than a contradiction. "Without question," she answered. "I couldn't go back to living half a life." The following spring brought new opportunities. Taylor was promoted at work, taking on a leadership role that would have once seemed impossible. Her confidence in professional settings had grown alongside her personal comfort. Michael proposed during a weekend trip to the coast, presenting a vintage emerald ring that complemented Taylor's auburn hair perfectly. The wedding planning brought expected complications, family dynamics to navigate, choices about traditions to keep or discard, decisions about who would stand with Taylor during the ceremony. Through it all, Taylor maintained the perspective that these were fortunate problems to have, the normal challenges of a life lived openly and authentically. On her wedding day, wearing an elegant lace gown that showed her shoulders and arms without hesitation, Taylor took a moment alone before the ceremony. In the mirror, she saw a woman at peace with herself. Auburn hair styled in loose waves, makeup enhancing rather than concealing, body moving with natural grace rather than calculated control. The journey hadn't ended, of course. There would always be aspects of dysphoria to manage, medical considerations specific to being transgender, and occasional challenging interactions with people who didn't understand. But the foundation had been laid for a life of authenticity. As Taylor prepared to walk down the aisle toward Michael and their shared future, she thought back to that first night in the red dress, the first public outing after completing laser hair removal, how nervous she had been, how revolutionary it had felt to simply cross her legs under a restaurant table without worrying about stubble showing through stockings. Such a small thing, and yet it had represented so much more. The freedom to live without constant vigilance, the right to take for granted what others never questioned, the ability to focus on the moment rather than on managing perceptions. Now, as the music began, and the doors opened to reveal her waiting guests, Taylor stepped forward into the next chapter, smooth skin, racing heart, and the quiet certainty that she was exactly who she was meant to be.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!